The UN has said that Sudan is on verge of a full-scale civil war. That was yesterday. And then today there are talks in Ethiopia. The Sudan army said that they would not participate in those talks. How do you assess the situation right now? What more can you do or not do? More sanctions or what have you? I know you never preview sanctions, but where are you at?
I will say that the situation in Sudan continues to be extremely troubling. With respect to the talks that you referred to, Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Molly Fee is in Addis Ababa today and tomorrow to engage with African leaders, including senior representatives of governments in the region, and the African Union Commission, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. And she is also meeting with Sudanese civilians committed to ending the conflict and restoring democratic governance in Sudan. I will just say that this meeting continues to send the message we have been sending to the two warring parties from the beginning, that the world is watching. The United States and our regional partners are unified in calling for the parties to immediately end the fighting and for the SAF and RSF to return to the barracks to adhere to their obligations under international humanitarian law and respect human rights. There is no military solution to this conflict, so we will continue to do two things. One, engage in diplomatic efforts like the ones we are engaging now, and two, impose measures that hold the parties accountable if and when it's appropriate. And you're right, I can't speak to those. I can't preview any of those from here, but those are the two tools in our toolbox that we will continue to deploy.
Yes, you said the world is watching, so what actions can actually take the United States beyond the tools that you mentioned? Are you at a position right now where you are, by frustration or what have you, or wanting to put more pressure at a stage where you are going to, strengthen measures against Sudan without calling them necessarily sanctions? Or are you still in this process of engaging with diplomacy?
I will say that the two are not mutually exclusive. We do continue to consider what other measures might be appropriate that we could deploy while engaging in diplomacy in the region. And one thing we're not going to do is give up our engagement on this matter. It continues to be a high priority for us. Assistant Secretary Fee has been in the region a number of times to work on this matter. Of course, John Godfrey is still there. And it will continue to be a high priority. But I acknowledge it is a very difficult solution that doesn't, present easy it's a very difficult problem that doesn't present easy solutions.
Sudan.
Yeah.
So if SAF and RSF are not part of these discussions in Ethiopia, what impact can they realistically make on this conflict?
Well, we think it's important to engage a number of parties in the region, governments in the region, especially those who have their own relationships with the two warring parties. And it's also important for us to engage not just with those governments, but with civilian authorities and civilian representatives in Sudan to make clear that we don't believe that there is a military solution to this conflict, and we believe there should ultimately be a transition to democracy. But I take your point. We have engaged with both of the factions since day one. And the point that we're at now is we've seen both factions continually agree to ceasefires and then either violate those ceasefires or refuse to extend them when the ceasefires have expired. So we will continue to send the message to them that we don't believe that there is a military solution. We're going to engage with our partners in the region, and we're going to continue to consider measures with which we can hold either party accountable.
And how are the civilian representatives who are part of this, how are they chosen, or which civilians are involved?
I can't speak to that with any detail other than it's Sudanese civilians committed to ending the conflict and restoring democratic governance in Sudan. There are a number of advocacy groups in Sudan that have been prominent over the last number of years. There are representatives from those groups and others.